It's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
Wacky Wednesday, and it's a very good evening, Zimbabwe. Welcome to your favorite sports show, ZiFM Sports. My name is Mike Madoda. With me is Barry Manandi, Chris Midzi, and Sean Tafirinyika. Hope you just serve up what should be an exciting edition of ZiFM Sport. Don't forget, because it's Wacky Wednesday, music is front and center. We've got our power play up top, and then smack bang in the middle of the show, we've got our play of the day. Music you can look forward to from Masked Wolf. Is that a group? Is that an individual? Why don't you stay tuned to find out? And then we got King Shadi, for those of you who love Zim dance or something about a letter to my TT. That is in the spirit of a Wacky Wednesday. But we're big on sport. And today we are talking football of a regional nature. COSAFA nations have placed their unequivocal support for Confederation of African Football presidential candidate Patrice Motsepe following the organization's annual general meeting that was held in Johannesburg on Sunday. Motsepe, the proud owner of Mamelodi Sundowns, has decided that South Africa is too small for him, that Africa is his playing ground. Will CAF agree to that? Will they vote him into power? We'll be discussing the implications of that move and what it means for Southern Africa and Zimbabwe football in particular.
We'll take you around the world in 60, starting off in the United States, where Tiger Woods is awake and responsive following surgery on serious leg injuries suffered in a car crash in Los Angeles yesterday. We'll head over to Canada, where Aston Martin owner Lawrence Stroll, not to be confused with Lance Stroll, has reportedly increased his controlling stake in the Formula One team after Kuwaiti investors reduced their shareholding. And of course, we'll touch down in England, where Benny Vulipola has said he has been a shadow of his former self in this year's Six Nations and is determined to deliver an improved display in Saturday's test against Wales in Cardiff.
We'll take our play of the day. As Mike said, then it's time for the beautiful game. We zone in on the UEFA Champions League, where Chelsea manager Thomas Tuchel hailed his players after the English club took control of their last 16 tie against Atletico Madrid. And then we'll talk about news that's going to send shivers into those that are seated in St. George's Park, the headquarters or the training base of England Football Association, because Lawrence Goretzka is hopeful Bayern Munich teammate Jamal Musiala will commit his international future to Germany following the midfielder's latest eye-catching display in Bayern's victory over Lazio last night. He can, of course, play for both Germany or England. In tonight's action, Pep Guardiola's Manchester City have a tricky test against Borussia Mönchengladbach in the first leg of their last 16 tie, and there's also a highly anticipated showdown as Atalanta go up against Real Madrid. All of that and so much more to look forward to in this edition of ZiFM Sport. But first is our power play, Wacky Wednesday. We call upon Masked Wolf. Mike talked about the fact, is it an artist? Is it a band? Is it a group? Well, he's an Australian rapper. This is his track, Astronaut in the Ocean.
Hi, my name is Zumba Amute, Los Angeles Clippers small forward, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Don't forget, a bit later on in the show, in the second half of the show, we'll be taking a look at the Champions League. Impressive performance once again by Bayern Munich, and then Chelsea stealing a march on Atletico Madrid on the road. They're in pole position to make it to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. That is all in the beautiful game. But before we get there, we'll have some international sports news for you, as well as our big story today, which centers on Patrice Motsepe and his continental ambitions. Before we get to hear the thoughts of the team in studio, let's give you a local sports news roundup.
The Home Front. Local sports news and analysis.
In golf news, top Zimbabwean professional golfer Scott Vincent will return to the field in this year's Commercial Bank Qatar Masters, set for the Education City Golf Club in Doha. The Asian and European Tour card holder will be part of the field that tees off on the 11th of March. Meanwhile, informed professional golfer Robson Chinoi may also have a rare opportunity to play in another European Tour co-sanctioned tournament, as he is tipped to grace the field at the Kenya Savannah Classic. Chinoi has been doing well in the Safari Tour, and his current standing may unveil an opportunity for him to be part of the €1 million 72-hole stroke play event. In netball news, with the World Cup qualifiers scheduled for next year, Zimbabwe Netball Association have said they are hoping they can get back into competition soon. They want to begin working towards ensuring the senior national team are ready for the qualifiers following their debut appearance in 2019. Returning to the next edition is going to be key in sustaining the gains from their previous appearance. Let's wrap it up with athletics news. One of the country's top distance runners, Fortunate Chidzivo, remains positive as she continues her build-up to the Olympic Games qualifiers. Chidzivo recently moved her training base back home. The long-distance runner, who has been traveling between Zimbabwe and South Africa for training, is one of the promising athletes earmarked to qualify for the rescheduled Tokyo 2020 Olympics. That wraps up our local sports news roundup. We talk the CAF presidency next.
The beating drum. Roaring fans. Take a ride on the wild side with the Africa Report on ZiFM Sport.
Right, let's get into that story out of South Africa, where COSAFA nations have pledged their unequivocal support for Confederation of African Football presidential candidate Patrice Motsepe following the organization's annual general meeting that was held in Johannesburg on Sunday. The 14 COSAFA members unanimously agreed that Dr. Motsepe was the best candidate to lead CAF into a new era of transparency and good governance, and confirmed he would have their backing at the CAF elective conference that will take place on the 12th of March in Morocco. Let's hear from South African Football Association President Danny Jordan, who says that Patrice Motsepe is the ideal candidate to lead football in Africa.
When you go into a competition, you must be sure that the victory path that you pursue is based on your strength, not on perceived or real weaknesses of your opposition. So, our campaign we spelled out. We've mentioned principles and policies and an analysis of how we see African football. No personalities involved. So that is our position as SAFA. It's a position that we discussed over a long period of time. And that is why you see that SAFA did not endorse anybody other than Patrice Motsepe.
Well, no surprises, Barry, that South Africa would come out guns blazing in support of their man, Patrice Motsepe, because they have really seen what Patrice Motsepe is all about, with Mamelodi Sundowns becoming the most prominent club in South African football. They've also known and seen what he's about as a businessman. He's one of the few billionaire businessmen on the continent, and that's the man that they are backing, and have, of course, worked their way and wormed their way into the hearts and minds of the rest of COSAFA to say that he is good for Southern African football.
Absolutely, and listen, with absolute credit to South Africa, not only is he a compatriot, but all of the points that you mentioned are critical to sort of endorsing that Patrice Motsepe is the right man for the job. And I completely wholeheartedly agree with them on the basis that having thought initially that Mamelodi Sundowns was just a pet project of a billionaire, just a good place for him to find to spend his money and play. Having listened to various interviews and thoughts of Patrice Motsepe from the horse's mouth interviews, obviously, you can actually see that he's a football man. He's a football man through and through. And I think it's time that CAF has a football man there who can make the right moves on the continent primarily, and then also through his role as automatic charismatic vice president of FIFA begin to plead Africa's case in the way that Africa should be treated by the broader family of nations. So I think it's an astute appointment and election if we get it over the line.
Now, Chris, do you think one of the reasons why Africa has failed to make a significant dent in global football politics is the fact that if you take a look at the two men who have occupied the top office at CAF, Ahmad, who was a government minister in Madagascar, and then the man who came before him, Issa Hayatu, he was just a teacher before he assumed that top job at CAF. With Patrice Motsepe, we are talking about a man who's got global business connections. We're talking about a man who's got credibility and respect globally. Will that stand African football in good stead?
It definitely stands Africa in good stead. First of all, from the perspective that when it comes to culture, here's a man who's been able to develop successful cultures throughout his own career. First of all, when he was a lawyer, and then secondly, in his own business ventures as an entrepreneur, he's been able to build successful culture. And you can see that because the man is a billionaire. Without successful culture, without being able to lead organizations successfully, you don't make that kind of money. So first of all, being able to impact CAF and the federations that make up CAF from the cultural perspective, where you get everybody in line from an administrative, from a political perspective, everyone toes the line, we will begin to see development in terms of African football. We'll see better football across our continent. So from a governance perspective, I think Patrice Motsepe would definitely be a great candidate for CAF. And because he's already recognized internationally, when it comes to then a higher level, which is FIFA, we will have easier conversations and we'll have someone who has the best interests of the entire continent in terms of football in his hands, and you'll have the ear of whoever the FIFA president will be.
Chris is talking about culture, Barry. Will he have the leeway? It's a lot easier when you're working in a business environment, in a corporate environment. But when it comes to African football politics, will he have that leeway to impact CAF to that extent where he will be able to get North Africa, West Africa, East Africa, and Southern Africa to all toe the same line?
I think he will have a measure of success in the cultural stakes, but look, the diversity that is represented by the 56 members of CAF makes it so that the cultural diversity is actually a benefit. So you don't want to impact that too much. But what he will do is certainly create a CAF culture whereby when we go to major tournaments, when we go to the FIFA Congress, we are able to speak in one voice, with one line, with one way in which we are communicating. And I think that's going to give us a lot of strength, a lot of ability, because this is a leader behind whom we can all rally on the basis of what we've seen him do in business, if he can extrapolate that into his political, and I say political first before I say football, because let's not forget CAF is a very political organization.
Well, Patrice Motsepe will be running against Jacques Anouma of Cote d'Ivoire, Augustine Senghor of Senegal, and Mauritanian Ahmed Yahya for the CAF presidency in the March 12th elective conference in Rabat, Morocco. And then, of course, there is the shadow of the incumbent, Ahmad, and no one knows where exactly he will stand come election day, because he's got all sorts of things that he's fighting in the background. Will he be a legitimate candidate? Will he be allowed to stand for election? Remember, he's got a case that's pending at the Court of Arbitration for Sport, so that's going to have a big bearing, and I think there's going to be a decision made on his participation, or at least on his status at CAF very imminently in the next couple of weeks. That may have a bearing on his candidacy. Now, how influential do you think Ahmad is, Chris, or is he a man that Africa wants to see the back of?
We've talked about CAF being a political organization, and you come into the position of CAF president through your relationships, through the leaders of the member federations, and you need to consistently have that in order for you to even think about running for a second time. So if we take a look at it at the moment, the people who supported him initially, some people, including Philip Chiangwa, who credit themselves with having managed to get him into the position of CAF presidency, they've literally just abandoned him because they've all thrown their weight behind Motsepe. Danny Jordan, apparently, from what we're hearing, he's having issues just in terms of communication with Ahmad. They're communicating via text at this point, apparently. So it's a little bit tricky, but I think the weight that supported him is no longer there. So potentially, he doesn't have the support base for him to even think about running.
And just to clarify, Barry, before you come in, just for our listeners, the Ahmad we're talking about is not Ahmad Nonkululeko, our dear Ahmad on ZiFM. We are talking about the CAF president.
Yes, indeed.
Go on, Baz.
Yeah, look, Mike, I think that when we talk about Ahmad, the CAF president, we're talking about a man who, in his tenure and his term, hasn't moved African football forward one iota. So for me, I don't think that the federations are looking at him as a realistic candidate to serve a second term. There was a lot of expectation when he came in, and he made a lot of promises in his election manifesto, and promised that he would move the needle, as it were, for African football. He's done neither. So I think the whole of the African continent now realistically wants to see that FIFA vice presidency actually work for the continent, and they have realized that if they stick with a particular candidate, like they did with Issa Hayatu, there's a danger that he begins to create his personal fiefdom, which doesn't work for the continent at all, and he pushes his personal agenda ahead of the continental one.
Move the needle. That is the critical thing that Africa wants to see as a continent. And that is what they're hoping that Patrice Motsepe will be able to do. And even locally in Southern Africa, Southern African nations are waiting to see whether Patrice Motsepe's successful candidature is going to be of benefit to the region. And then for us Zimbabweans, for Zimbabwe in particular. And in that regard, let's hear the thoughts, the sentiments of the senior sports editor at the country's leading daily, The Herald, that is Robson Sharuko.
Patrice Motsepe's decision to plunge into the battle for the CAF presidency is pregnant with both risk and opportunity. The risk factor comes from the muddy playfield. When you look at CAF, you are looking at an organization that is burdened by the weight of corruption. It's an organization that stinks, an organization that has lost its moral compass. It's an organization where survival is the order of the day for those who are the fittest. So when you have elections for the CAF leadership, it's not about who presents the best candidacy. It's always about who presents those who vote, that is the FA presidents, with the best pockets, with the best transfers for their bank accounts. So we've got an organization that has been limping for some time because it is burdened by debt, it is burdened by a very poor profile, it is burdened by the historical injustices that we've seen being meted out to clubs from the southern region when it comes to competitions like the Champions League, Confederation Cup, and even the national teams themselves, where those from the west and the north have been given preferential treatment. So there is a lot that has to be cleared at an organization like CAF. And when we look at the last person who was in charge, Ahmad, he came in pretending to be a good guy, but he is going out being labeled as somebody who is probably more corrupt than Issa Hayatu himself. So the opportunity for Patrice is that he can go in and try and clean the mess that is there. But obviously, it's not an easy job to do. Whether he wins is another thing, but if he wins, it will be good for Africa, it will be good for Southern Africa, it will be good also for Zimbabwe, because we have got somebody at the helm of CAF who was passionate about what we represent as a country in terms of football. Because when I think Patrice Motsepe realizes the value that Zimbabwe football has. He has invested millions of dollars into Zimbabwean football over the years. We might not see it on face value, but when you look at his investment into our players, his investment into our technical crew, be it Peter Ndlovu, be it Ian Gorowa, this is a man who understands us. He understands that there is so much that Zimbabwean football can offer, but Zimbabwean football is being crippled from realizing its full potential because of issues that are not related to its human capacity in terms of the players and the technical stuff that it can give to the world. It is because of the things that we don't do right, administratively. And this is a guy who can come in and help us sort out those things. And I believe he is the best candidate right now for us as a nation. That is why he deserves our support. That is why he deserves our backing. That is why a Patrice Motsepe candidacy will be a very good thing for Zimbabwean football. Obviously, we run the risk of this election being turned into a circus because there are people out there who make the final decisions. We have been fighting for a long time to ensure that the southern part of the continent doesn't have the right to rule CAF. When you look at the term that we brought in Ahmad, it was because they just wanted to get rid of Hayatu. And now, whether those people can still allow another southern region candidate to come in and rule CAF, it's something that we have to wait and see.
Robson Sharako there, Barry, talking about the fact that he believes that the Motsepe candidature is not only good for Southern African football, it's good particularly for Zimbabwean football.
I agree, because you can tell that Patrice Motsepe realizes, like Robson said, the value of Zimbabwean football, but also has a soft spot for Zimbabwean football as well. You look at the number of players that have gone through Mamelodi Sundowns, his failed or adventure into partnering with Caps United, whatever caused the breaking down of that relationship. It wasn't for want of trying. So he's always had links, inextricable, sort of an umbilical cord that joins him to Zimbabwe. And you got to think to yourself, even in the high offices of CAF presidency, he's going to want to see the success of Zimbabwean football. So I think it'll be good for Zimbabwe if Patrice Motsepe goes in there, even if it doesn't mean that he directly impacts Zimbabwean football. The fact that CAF is likely to be moved forward is going to be good for this country and its football, because the uplift for African football is going to impact every nation within the purview of CAF, of which Zimbabwe is one.
And of course, it's not just the players the Zimbabwean players that have played for Sundowns. It's also some that he's integrated into the management of his club. Peter Ndlovu is the manager of Mamelodi Sundowns, and you've got Ezrom Nyandoro, the former AmaZulu player. He's also quite prominent, and I think he's head of scouting out at Mamelodi Sundowns. So he's a man who definitely believes in Zimbabwean football. Now, Chris, does it concern you that you haven't even heard a whisper coming out of 53 Livingston Avenue regards the candidature of Patrice Motsepe, and yet Robson Sharako and Barry Manandi are at pains to point out the obvious benefits to Zimbabwean football, and yet we haven't heard anything from Felton Kamambo, we haven't heard anything from Xolisani Gwesela, we haven't heard anything in an official capacity from anyone at ZiFM.
If I were to say I'd be disappointed or surprised, it means that I was expecting it to happen, and I certainly wasn't. If we take a look at the people who are running ZiFM at the moment, I don't think there's anyone there who's entirely conscious of just how impactful Patrice Motsepe potentially becoming the CAF president. I don't think they recognize just what it would mean for Zimbabwean football. So to say I'd expect it is...
So, Wokundwana Fidza? Is that what you're trying to tell me, that Fidza saw the opportunity, took it?
Definitely.
Fidza actually became a household name in African football as a result of him becoming Ahmad's barking dog.
Fidza spotted the opportunities. We've talked about this being a political game. Fidza sees opportunities and he backs whoever he thinks is the best horse. At the moment, people at ZiFM are simply sleepy.
To be fair on ZiFM, they've got a get out of jail card, and I'm going to hand it to them for free because they can easily come out and say that we were waiting for the Confederation of Southern African Football, that is COSAFA, that is the body which we belong to speak first, and then Barry, we were going to follow that.
No, that's not how it works, because you know what? You've got to work your way into proximity for you to benefit more than the rest, because if you put yourself under a group, you're going to get the group benefits. So you're going to get the same benefits that will go to Namibia, to Botswana, to Mozambique, to Zambia. But you have to posture and say, listen, South Africa, it's you and us. You and us, we are the prominent footballing nations in Southern Africa. Never mind Zambia. You've got to elbow Zambia out of the door and say, it's you and us. And we got to do this.
And that was to offer them an excuse, and that's all it is, because there is no reason why.
They don't listen to anyone. They're not listening.
There's no reason why ZiFM has not come out guns blazing, because in truth, Patrice Motsepe's candidacy is also a Zimbabwean candidacy because of our close links with South Africa, the way in which we've worked in past years together with SAFA. And I think that ZiFM needs to come out and support this candidacy, because it'll be good for Southern Africa. We've had the presidency for the number of years that Ahmad has been in office. We haven't used it wisely. Now we have an opportunity to put a man in there who's going to make a realistic difference. And we all need to support Patrice Motsepe.
We all need to support Patrice Motsepe. Get in touch with us on Twitter at ZiFM Sport, at Barry Manandi, at Chris Midzi, at Shunta Filinyika, and at Mike Madoda. Alois Bunjira is also a part of our team. Follow him at Gazaman14. We want to hear your thoughts on the Patrice Motsepe candidature. Will it be of immense benefit to Southern Africa? Will it be huge for Zimbabwean football? He's a man with a liking for Zimbabwean football, as seen by the amount of players from this nation that have played for his beloved Sundowns, and some that have been integrated into management at that club. And we're just praying that he will be successful come that election on the 12th of March.
Hi, my name's Ryan Cairns, Sunshine Tour professional golfer, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
From the front of the grid to the back of the net, it's ZiFM Sport.
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
We take off in the United States, where Tiger Woods is awake and responsive following surgery on serious leg injuries suffered in a car crash in Los Angeles yesterday. The 15-time golf major champion, who is now 45 years old, had to be extricated from the wreck by firefighters and paramedics. The American suffered open fractures in his lower leg, which were stabilized by inserting a rod. Injuries to his foot and ankle have been stabilized with screws and pins. Barry, Tiger Woods having some major injuries here, and this could potentially impact his career, the continuation of his career. Golf needs Tiger Woods. This is a sad development.
It is a sad development, and in truth, you got to think to yourself that we all hope that these are not going to be career-ending injuries that he sustained in that car accident. Right now, we're concerned about Tiger, the human being, that he's able to get back just to a normalcy in terms of life, and then hopefully make a decision on his golf career. Yes, golf needs Tiger, and therefore we're all willing him on. But it's hard to rule out a guy who's bounced back the amount of times that Tiger Woods has. I have a suspicion he will be back.
Well, they do say a cat has 9 lives, and fingers crossed he's going to make that bounce back once again. We'll head over to Canada, where Aston Martin owner Lawrence Stroll has reportedly increased his controlling stake in the Formula One team after Kuwaiti investors reduced their shareholding. The Canadian billionaire first bought into Aston Martin Lagonda Global Holdings last year, keen to revamp both the brand's image and its car range. The consortium he led invested north of $180 million in return for 16.7% stake in the company. As part of the deal, Stroll's Formula One team Racing Point rebranded to Aston Martin for the 2021 season. And on touchdown in England, where Billy Vunipola has said that he's been a shadow of his former self in this year's Six Nations and is determined to deliver an improved display in Saturday's test against Wales in Cardiff. The number 8 was well below his best in England's opening defeat by Scotland and did not impress in their 41-18 win over Italy. He was replaced in both matches. I've been playing rubbish and I need to turn up this weekend, Vunipola said, adding that he felt like a bit of a coward as he had been hiding from being fatigued.
Hi, my name is Rune Shamba, Mytoria's super striker. You're listening to ZiFM Sports.
The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport.
As advertised, we're talking the Champions League today. Let's look at matches played yesterday. Chelsea manager Thomas Tuchel, he's hailed his players after the English club took control of their Champions League last 16 tie against Atletico Madrid. Olivier Giroud's stunning overhead kick secured a 1-0 victory over Atletico in the opening leg of the European matchup. Played in Bucharest due to the coronavirus travel restrictions between the United Kingdom and Spain. Let's hear from Thomas Tuchel.
I'm super happy for my players and for the team that we have such a big reward and that we actually can read it on the scoreline, that we have the result for top performance. It was very important that we are absolutely concentrated over all 96 minutes. That we accept also that it's very hard to create chances. But we did all that and it was a very good team effort.
Chelsea, Mike, were dominant. They deserved every bit of the advantage that they have going into the second leg, and I think it's due to their positive approach and also a little bit to do with the negative approach of Atletico Madrid, would you say?
Well, the approach from Atletico Madrid didn't surprise me because that's how Diego Simeone prefers to play it, especially against what he considers to be a good opposition. He's always going to be defensive and hope to catch you on the counter. It didn't work out for him in this game. He had a couple of look-ins which, to be honest, one or two might have gone into the back of the net on any given day. And then it took Giroud, that fantastic goal that he scored. And that's the sort of goal that you need if you're going to break down Atletico Madrid. They are very, very difficult to score against. And they showed it last night. You talk about Chelsea dominating possession and getting into dangerous areas, but there was never a time where it was backs to the wall for Atletico Madrid. They were repelling everything that was thrown at them. And also, Atletico Madrid themselves will not be entirely disappointed, Barry, because they played in this sort of manner versus Liverpool, if you remember, last year. And then they came to England to a place where many people thought, listen, Klopp is going to sink Atletico Madrid. And they actually won at Anfield. So on any given day, if the tactics work out and Atletico Madrid are efficient, they're actually able to get over the line. But you've got to give credit to Tuchel. He set out his stall very well, and he's got the away goal and the victory that Chelsea need to actually make it to the next round. So this is a good performance. It wasn't a classic, but it was a good performance from Chelsea.
Man, you got to consider what you have in hand, don't you, Chris? Because a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, and that's thanks in large part to Olivier Giroud here. That overhead kick that Mike is talking about was absolutely fantastic, albeit that VAR had to intervene just to see where the last touch came from, because
dodgy decision though. Because
would you say it looked like?
How do you determine that the Atletico Madrid defender has deliberately played the ball to the Chelsea attacker? How?
I think the amendment of the rule to say
subjective.
That the amendment of the rule to say that the last player to have a touch of the ball, a deliberate touch, whether it was back to the keeper or whatever the case may be.
Now, would you classify that as deliberate?
Yes, I would.
Was it deliberate?
Yes, I would. On the basis.
No, that's subjective.
I would classify it as deliberate on the basis that he was attempting to clear the ball. So it was a deliberate move towards the ball. It wasn't accidental by any stretch of the imagination. It was a deliberate move to try and clear the ball. So as a result, went into Giroud's path and he finished it. So I would
who was in an offside position. So he benefits from being in an offside position. Now it's the same thing, isn't it, or similar, or a cousin of that decision we saw for Man City, where their player in an offside position comes and robs, I think it was Rodri. He then robbed the Aston Villa defender off the ball, Tyrone Mings, and went and scored. Because for me, once a player is offside, we must eliminate all possibilities of him benefiting from anything that happens, because you are in an offside position.
Yeah, and the law covers that Man City goal, which everyone...
It was changed. It was changed. Remember, they came out 2 weeks later and said, good team, that's a grave injustice. Yeah, right. We've amended the law. Yes. That can no longer happen. And I think they need looking at this one, because it's got a grey area which leaves it open to debate. Like Chris is saying, it's subjective. The interpretation is subjective.
Yeah, and that interpretation, of course, benefiting Chelsea. But Atletico Madrid, as you quite rightly point out, Mike, won't be too sad about this result, because they know they can turn it around when they go across to Stamford Bridge, or if it's played on neutral territory. Atletico Madrid manager Diego Simeone says he does not regret his conservative approach to the game.
La verdad que los partidos cuando se juegan no se pueden cambiar.
We can't change what happened on the pitch. This game is so beautiful because it is determined by what happens on the pitch, and that's changing all the time. It doesn't make sense to think whether or not I would change something when I look back now. The reality is what it is. We believed that we had the game under control, with no chance for either team. However, we struggled in our build-up after winning the ball.
Chris, not unexpected. Mike certainly said it correctly, that we fully expected that Atletico Madrid would be difficult to break down, and that Chelsea is only 1-0 up will certainly make Diego Simeone think to himself, well, look, my permutation is very simple. I just need to win the next leg, the next tie of this two-legged affair.
Yeah, definitely. And that's not, I think, for a team playing as well as Atletico Madrid is, as balanced as they are as a team, I don't think that's too much of an ask. I think they walk away from this, I think, with a couple of tweaks that they need to make, but not necessarily with their heads hung low and worried about the next leg of this. I think they'll be able to go into it quite confidently, because Atletico Madrid is a scoring side. They'll still be able to score those goals and to win this match and proceed into the next round.
And score those goals they will need to prevail over Chelsea and go into the next round. In other action last night, Leon Goretzka, his hopeful Bayern Munich teammate Jamal Musiala will commit his international future to Germany following the midfielder's latest eye-catching display. Musiala marked his second Champions League start with a long-range strike in Bayern's emphatic 4-1 win over Lazio last night. Standing at 17 years and 363 days, he's the youngest Englishman to score in the competition and the second youngest player to net in the knockout stages after Bojan in 2007 and 2008. He's a good player, Mikey, and both countries will be licking their chops hoping that he comes to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Good player. And yesterday when we're doing the build-up to this game, we talked about the need for other players to back up Lewandowski if they were to make an impression in this game. And that's exactly what happened. And he was the star of the show. 17 years old, scores an absolute corker for Bayern Munich. And it's another arrow in the quiver of their manager, knowing that he's got this young, bright prospect on the bench, a young player who can come into a game of this magnitude and make an impact. So in the bigger games to come, quarterfinals, semi-finals, possibly even a finals appearance again for Bayern Munich, he knows that, you know what, when you put out the first 11 and things are not going your way, he can call on Musiala to try and come and impact the game and change things and possibly get a goal for his team. So this is really good and impressive performance by Bayern Munich. I thought they would win, but I didn't think they would put 4 past Lazio on the road. So this, again, just underlining why they're arguably the best team. I think right up there with Man City, debatable for me, but the best team in Europe certainly, and worthy defenders of their titles.
Yeah, if we don't want to go to the extent of calling them one of the best teams in Europe, Chris, you've got to say that at the very least, this is a statement win over Lazio to say we've got the train back on track and we want to make a big dent in trying to defend our Champions League title, isn't it?
Yeah, I think coming off the Club World Cup, they had a couple of shaky incidents. They had a draw, a loss, and everyone was kind of looking at Bayern Munich like, maybe the train is screeching to a halt. But I think being able to get 4 goals in this particular match, where it's not necessarily they weren't playing gimmies in Lazio. So I think being able to get that as a team, they didn't have a few of their best players as well. they're able to confidently, first of all, go back into the Bundesliga and perform well. But also, I think there's a bit more respect for them after their couple of drops in performances.
And Barry, what a result like this allows them to do is manage their workload better than the other teams that are challenging around them. The one thing that we talk about football in February, in March and April is that the teams that manage their workload better tend to do better, especially in the UEFA Champions League. They're already 4 goals, Barry, on the road, 3 goals to the good. So this means that the second leg is not going to have the intensity that it would do if this was a 1-0 or a 2-1. It means that they can play certain players for 60 minutes, pull them out, give them a rest. They can even rest certain players for that second leg and make sure that they are managing the load that's on their players heading into the most crucial part of the season in the Bundesliga as well as in Europe.
Absolutely, Mike, and that's to say nothing of the players that were missing last night, so they still can manage their squad quite effectively, certainly in this tie and in all the competitions in which they are challenging. We're talking about tonight's action next.
Hi, I'm Warriors coach Zdravko Logarušić, and you are listening to ZiFM Sport. Sports with a difference.
Now, Pep Guardiola says facing Borussia Mönchengladbach will be nothing special or different to any other game as in-form Man City look to end their quest for Champions League success. Man City face Gladbach at the Puskás Arena in Budapest in the first leg of the round of 16 tie, riding on the crest of a wave after winning 18 consecutive games. Let's hear from Pep Guardiola.
Not the quality of the opponents, but we have quality too. So we're going to prepare the game like a normal game, like we have played this season, and from the beginning we're going to tell them what Mönchengladbach they are as a team, like we have done against Arsenal, against Liverpool, against Everton, the last games we played, against Tottenham, the last games we played the same way. No, we're going to change absolutely anything.
Well, Barry, more often than not, in the last 5 or so seasons, since Pep Guardiola took charge of Man City, City have been here before, at a place where they find themselves hunting in every cup competition that they've participated in. This season, the hunt is on for a quadruple.
It is, and in truth, if ever there was a time where I think it's actually going to happen, it'll be this season, on the basis that you can almost see Pep Guardiola has always been this compulsive, this obsessive individual, and you can see it even more in this season. He is leaving nothing to chance, and every single move is choreographed. You can see it on the field of play. So for me, I think this is the season where we're going to see that quadruple, and we're all going to be alive to actually see it happen. Gladbach is just a bump in the road on their way to claiming their first Champions League crown, in my view.
And one of the reasons why Pep Guardiola, Chris, would be so cock-a-hoop is that he's got a near-perfect bill of health. I think it's only Nathan Ake with a hamstring injury that's out. But in terms of all his main players, the key defenders, the key midfielders, the key attackers, everyone is available at his disposal.
Everyone is available at his disposal, and it's not a lot of teams at this point that are able to say that. And because he's got his key players, we know Pep Guardiola is going to put them in the best positions to be able to come out of this with a significant win. I think Borussia Mönchengladbach is a decent team, but I think the way Pep Guardiola and his team have been working, 25 matches without defeat in all competition. Look, you're going to trip up somewhere, but I don't think Borussia Mönchengladbach is going to be that trip up.
Well, they disagree with you, Chris. Their fullback, Oscar Wendt, he says that they are ready for Man City and ready to end that 28-match unbeaten run.
Das Achtelfinale in Champions League. Wir haben die Chance.
It's the last 16 in the Champions League. We have the chance, the opportunity to compete with maybe the best team in the world, as you said. World-class players in each position. This is what you want to play against. We train every day and play football to be successful as possible and take advantage of this chance.
Realistic or just bravado, Barry? Surely someone is expected to say something at a press conference.
Bravado. They know what they're facing. They are going to be inundated by attack after attack, wave after wave. We know how Manchester City operates. They don't have a handbrake. They don't have a brake on their vehicle. It's accelerate, go forward, and make sure that offense is our best form of defense. So bravado for me. But Borussia Mönchengladbach themselves, they know Mickey Mouse side. If they were playing anyone else, they would certainly go deep in this competition. When they drew Manchester City, I think they knew that they've got a very stern test. This first leg is going to be critical. They need to stay in the tie in order for them to have even a hope of going forward. If they go if they are breached at least 3 times in this particular leg, it could be a struggle.
And they're a team that I think Man City will have to respect a bit. Their manager, of course, is Marco Rose, and he is being touted as the next Borussia Dortmund manager. So he's doing a great job and is well respected out in the Bundesliga. And then in players like Marcus Thuram, the son of Lilian Thuram and Lars Stindl, they've got players who are able to come up trumps on the big stage. Well, let's talk about the club that normally comes out trumps on the big stage. That is Real Madrid, and they are taking on unpredictable Atalanta in the second game of the evening. Chris, Atalanta, a team that Real Madrid will need to be wary of.
I think Gasperini's side, from what we've seen throughout this entire season, they're a team that you don't necessarily know what to expect from them. They're a team full of surprises, and going into this match, Real Madrid definitely needs to have their guard up. They need to be on their A game. It's not a match that they can go into in an almost relaxed position. There's some ways off them in La Liga, but in terms of this particular matchup, it's a cup competition. Anything can happen, and a team like Atalanta can definitely upset them.
Well, let's take a look, Barry, at the injury list that's going to be of concern to Real Madrid fans. If you take a look at that infirmary, it has got Eden Hazard, Rodrigo, their skipper, Sergio Ramos, Marcelo, Militao, Daniel Carvajal, Federico Valverde, as well as Karim Benzema. Does this close the gap with unpredictable Atalanta?
Massively, and look, I'm not sure about close the gap on the basis that I think Atalanta are good enough to beat anyone on their day, and most of all now with the infirmary you just ran through, I think they're doing hot seating at that infirmary because you have to sort of trade beds. They haven't got enough beds to cover that many players who are in there. So Atalanta themselves will be quietly confident as a result of the injury concerns that Zinedine Zidane has. I think Zizou himself will look to not sort of make this first leg competitive and try and see if he can get as many of his frontliners, the headliners you've just ran out in the next 3 weeks when they play the second leg to be available and then finish off the job. So this one is wide open, and I feel that Atalanta might just carry the day on this.
And Casemiro, the influential Real Madrid midfielder, walking a tight rope because he's one yellow card away from suspension. So he's going to have to tread lightly in this game where Real Madrid may be called upon to do a lot of defending against a very plucky and a very attack-oriented Atalanta side. Well, just a few minutes left, guys, and I've got to hear your predictions. And the big game, obviously, is the Man City one, because everyone is curious to see whether Man City can make the step up. Can they challenge for honours in Europe? Everyone knows that they are the best side in England. They have been for the last 5 seasons. In fact, they have been the best side in England for the last decade. But can they step up to the top table in European football? How do you see their game, Chris, versus Mönchengladbach going?
They're definitely gonna. I think they'll be able to pick up a win there. At the very
convincing as Bayern.
Not as convincing as Bayern. I think Bayern is Bayern. I think Man City. I'm gonna go with a 2-0 win.
2-0 win for Man City. Baz, do you see it differently?
Yeah, just a tiny bit. I think, yes, clean sheet because Pepper sorted out his defense. But I would say that they're going to score 3 in this first leg, and the tie will almost be over.
And the tie will almost be over. What is almost over is this edition of ZiFM Sport. Do catch us tomorrow for the shortened edition as we continue with our power profiles of the FIFA World Cups. And tomorrow, it's a special. It's the Women's FIFA World Cup, which has come along in leaps and bounds over the last 2 decades.
It certainly has, so don't miss that one. May God richly bless you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Manandi, out.